Welcome to Fathers Unfiltered. This is a podcast that allows separated fathers to tell their story. We've got today's guest. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us your name, your age, and what you do for a living, how many kids you got.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 39. I'm originally from Bolton, but now reside in Blackpool. I'm a father of 7 kids. Recently divorced as of May, and was married for just shy of 18 years.
So, how long have you been separated from your ex?
So I've been separated since February last year. So February 2023 is when we officially separated.
Okay. So we're coming up to thereabouts a year and a half then?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking 19, 20 years ago. Can you take us back to the day that you two got together?
So I was in the army at the time. It's a funny story, but I was in the army at the time, and I'd just not so long finished my basic training and went out into my phase 2 training in Aldershot. I was training to be a medic. The first week was a bit of an introduction week, like fire assessments and, kind of getting used to the army barracks, settling into our course. At the time, there was 3 services all ploughed into one. So there was the army, the navy and the RAF, males and females all on this one barracks. But there was also a number of different courses at different stages through the courses. The tradition was the army, when you get to the end of your first week, everybody on your course then went out on a night out on a piss in Aldershot town centre. And I got really pally with this girl that was a Air Force lass, and we decided that we was going to go out for something to eat. So I went for a Chinese banquet, all you can eat, and then decided, we'll go to Yates's, have a few drinks, and then on to the nightclub. And went to the nightclub. Anyway, cut a long story short, I met my ex-wife because I was walking past her, pinched her bum, but I was already out on a date with somebody else. I was 20-year-old at the time, young in the army, bee's knees, thinking that, but during the course of the night, I kept going between my ex-wife and this RAF girl, unfortunately. But that's how I met her in the nightclub. And then I end up somehow managing getting a telephone number, and then over the weekend we end up speaking, and then the following week we end up meeting up sober, and I kind of like broke down to her in tears of what's gone on in my past through growing up.
Okay. So while you're in the army, you've met this girl, who's your ex-wife. How did that relationship progress from there? I'm guessing you're only seeing each other every so many weeks. Oh, you get every weekend off, is it?
Yeah, get every weekend off, depending on what you're in. When we first initially met, I was in my training. So I was there for 9 months. So I was there for sort of 9-10 months at the time. And it was probably about 5 or 6 miles. The camp was not, a 20-minute journey on the train and then into the town centre, and then a bit of a walk to where she lived. So I'd like in an evening, if I wasn't doing any revising, I'd go around and see her. We'd do, cinemas, usual stuff in the honeymoon phases. And so you just go out and see her like every night when I wasn't doing. And then on weekends, as our relationship progressed, on weekends that I had off, we'd jump on a train and we'd come back up north and come back up to Bolton, where I'm originally from. And then that's sort of how it progressed. And
how long did that continue in that sort of state for?
More or less since day one. It's like the second week probably of meeting. We was like really heavily invested in each other.
Did that go for the next couple of years or?
No, not really, because like once I'd So at that time, and so she become pregnant as well. So we was married by time I was still 20. She was 19, and yeah, she was, you know, from the get go basically. She was pregnant, and you know, yeah, we'll go from there.
So you got married.
Very, very early on, within like, we're probably within the we'd met in the February, March, and then by November we was married, and December she was pregnant and having baby, basically.
And you were really content with the relationship and where it was going, and
Yeah, you know, it was my second big relationship where I was absolutely head over heels in love with her, and I wanted a future with her, and so I wanted a future with her, and that's where I wanted. I always wanted kids. I just didn't plan to have 7 kids, but yeah. So yeah, the first year was a bit of a roller coaster of romance, and you know, it was really rapid, you know, progression. Her mum didn't like me because I was a squaddy,
okay,
which was really difficult. She hated squaddies, being from a squaddy town as well, and it was,
yeah,
you know, I wanted to take away the stigma of the not all army soldiers are the same. And then, yeah, it took years upon years to gain a mum's respect and a mum's trust. Yeah, God rest her soul. But yeah, so the first sort of 12 months, I'd done my training, and then from like going through my training, getting married, and then end up going to my first unit as a family in the December of 2005, yeah.
What was it like in the wedding itself? Was it a big do or?
No, it was. So we got married on bonfire night.
Okay.
And it was a bit of a. It was. I had a weekend to get married.
Just a weekend.
Just a weekend.
And that's all the prep.
That was all the prep. We'd done a bit of prep beforehand, so we'd come back to Bolt at the time. So in this transition of getting married, the ex-wife, she ended up moving from Aldershot in with my parents, or my mum and stepdad in Bolton, and so yeah, it was a bit of a crazy situation, and we so she'd already moved in, and then a couple of weeks before getting married, she'd come back down south to speak with like her friends and family and stuff like that, and she come for a wedding dress. Anyhow, basically was coming back from Aldershot, got on the train. She then started having Branston Hicks on the train. So the train got emergencies. It wasn't meant to stop at Birmingham. It was a straight through train from London to Manchester, then up to Glasgow, I think. It got stopped at Birmingham as an emergency. So we then had to go to the hospital in Birmingham. We had an ambulance waiting on platform for us to take us there. And then, yeah, we almost missed our own wedding. Anyhow, the Friday was, I decided that I was going to go out for a few drinks with my best men who were also in the army. We got a bit rowdy, had a few drinks. I almost missed turning up for my wedding on time. But yeah, we basically had a weekend to organise everything. The wedding was done at just a local, registry office.
Yeah.
Venue was cheap and cheerful. It cost us less than $1,500 to get like married, and venue, and Dad paid for a car, and everything. Everybody sort of chipped in it. Back then, almost 20 years ago, everybody helped out to help everybody, and it was like, yeah, it was a bloody good day. It was a bloody good little wedding, and we'd always said we'd renew our vows, but we never got to that point of doing it big and properly. But obviously, I was happy with what we had.
And when was the first baby due? What month is that about?
December.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Okay.
So she was
So you got married like
like
a month or
8
so,
and a half,
2 months.
eight and a half months pregnant when she got married.
How was it for you in the run up to the birth? Did you notice any difference in yourself, or did you feel any different?
Yeah, no, I was excited. I was really excited, and first child. Definitely, really, really excited. So yeah, it was obviously it wasn't planned, and but yeah, it was proud as well of becoming a father, and just wanting to be there as much as I possibly could, especially with the circumstances of me being in the army as well was difficult. Because we was always on duty and everything, as the old saying in the army is that army comes first and family comes a close second. So yeah, yeah.
And I'm guessing where you said the baby came in December, how was the day of the birth?
So
did you feel like a spare part?
I won't say spare part. So she started her contractions on Boxing Day, and we end up going to the next Boxing Day sales, and then there was an assistant in there, and she was like holding onto a rail, and this assistant come up to her and was like, "Are you all right, love?" And she went, I went, "Does she look all right?" And he was like, "What's that?" I went, "She's just having contractions, mate. It's going to be a long time." And he kind of looked at us, and I was like, "Yeah, she's almost due to pot. Like, she's in fucking labour, mate. Just leave us to it. She'll be all right." But she want to go to the next sales. So at the time she was registered back in my hometown with obviously for the birth, but we'd lived up in Preston at the time with the military. So it was like we ended up coming back to stay for a few days at my mum's, so then she could have baby. But we ended up going back, and then the night of her having the baby, we had to travel in the back of a van because one of her Christmas presents was like, do you know, one of those bath jacuzzi things, and we put it in the bath. And then she went, "I'm just going to have a jacuzzi." Then halfway through, read the instructions. Don't do it if you're pregnant, may induce labour. Next minute, boom, labour come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it helped induce. She was already having her waters had broken. She was sent backwards and forwards, and yeah, it was for her. Her labour was like going through labour was like 36 hours with him. It was a massive ordeal for her, and I was there every step of the way. And luckily, it was sort of Christmas, so I was on leave as well. So yeah, it was.
That is pretty intense. 36 hours.
Yeah, it was an intense labour. Like it was rather. One of them was 36. It might have been 29 hours with Daniel, but even so, that's still a long time. Like to go through a labour, I couldn't.
Yeah, mine and my ex's was only the first one was about 14,
right? Yeah,
thereabouts. But I mean, it felt long for me. Probably felt long for her, but yeah, 36 is.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how was life once the first child was here, and then you having to go back into the army?
It was
back on duty, I should say.
I got deployed. I didn't. Luckily, I kind of didn't get any deployment, but I ended up getting deployed for different types of training. So, within my first 6 months of being in the army, I'd jumped on to doing my Class 1 medic course. I went out to Cyprus to do some skydiving, but I got returned to unit for being drunk and disorderly and out of bounds. But then I was stuck out in Cyprus. I went out to do I'll quickly tell you this one. I went out to do a skydiving course out there. I'd done 10 static line jumps out of a plane about 10,000 feet. So basically a line connected to the inside of the plane, and then it pulls your parachute out for you. Then the following week I was meant to do another 20 jumps, free fall parachuting, so no help, and I have to pull the thing myself. And then I could have then progressed and done extra courses if I wanted to do it. And yeah, the first week we'd finished all our parachutes. The last day, the Friday, we had to get in at 5 o'clock in the morning, pack all our parachutes up, and then we was doing free parachute jumps before lunchtime. And yeah, so like basically a sunrise one over Cyprus. It's absolutely beautiful, it was. And then me and one of the other guys on the courses decided that we'd go out on the piss. So we went round all the bars on camp, and then he was like, "Oh, I can get us off camp." I was like, "Oh, can you?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll go down to like the main strip." I was not allowed to Iron Appa because it's out of bounds for squaddies, but was allowed to this other one if you lived on tight. And he was like, "Yeah, I reside here, I live here, but you know, I can get us off any." Gets us off camp. Next minute, went to this bar, and 1.5 litre bottle of JD later, me and this guy, I tripped up out of this bar, off the step, hit the floor dinner, and knocked myself out on the pavement. Next minute I woke up and I was in the medical centre being sick, overwatched by some corporals. I was 20-year-old at the time, and I was like, what was I 20? I was 21 at the time. Like, don't know what's going on. Sick. And then the next minute, you need to go and see this captain. And I was like, I was shitting myself. I didn't know what to do. And then they was like, yeah, okay. So, right, you're going back to your unit. Anyhow, I ended up being stuck out in Cyprus for 2 weeks with the credit card. My missus was going stir crazy because I had the credit card. She had no access to any funds. I was only meant to be out there for 2 weeks, and that was just... And, yeah, I was just getting pissed every night, mate. Just me and some other random guys just buying crates. Every time we turned up in the morning to go and see if our flight, no, it's been delayed, it's doing an Iraq detail, or, you know, so the flights at the time weren't guaranteed. They didn't have any chartered flights on through the military or the RAF. So it was like, as and when they could get back, and it was, I think we were stuck out there for like 2 weeks, just living it up. Couldn't do anything. At 8 o'clock every morning, go with our bag. Nope. Right. See you tomorrow morning. It was like that for 2 weeks until we could get back. And then I got absolutely bollocked when I got back. And
I can imagine.
Sent back on court. So yeah, as part of my punishment, I got sent on my personal fitness instructor course to be a PTI.
Is that punishment from
fucking up, basically? But it helped benefit myself. So I was sent away then for another 12 weeks.
So your local unit weren't happy that you were out for so long?
No, there was, you know, wasn't happy that I brought a bad name to the unit because I got done for drunk and disorderly on a what's meant to be a nice easy course, parachuting. And then I turned back up and I was like, yeah, right, you're going away there's another course, we're going to slap you on that. We'll see how well you do on that. And it was my personal fitness instructor course to be a PTI. And it was something I always wanted to do, and I absolutely breezed the course for 12 weeks.
So what was life like outside of the army when you went back home, the transition then to being a dad again?
Yeah, it was difficult at times because I was, obviously she was the main homemaker, and, you know, she kept the house going and stuff like that. And I was just sort of sometimes a bit like a third wheel sometimes, and just being in and
You're
around.
trying to interject it into a routine.
Interject it, you know, trying to keep her, bringing, you know, stability with an income, and tried to be there and present as much as I could possibly be at the time. And it was, you know, I was grateful because it was always, you know, you've got to be lenient with the army at the time, and you've always got to, you know, like you say, army comes first, family comes a close second. It wasn't until sort of then my second child, she was born, we'd then moved from up north back down south. My ex-wife wanted to be a little bit more closer to her family, and I was like up on agreements. Yet there was some family politics going on my side of the family, my parents getting involved in relationships, and it's been like that. It had been that kind of a little bit toxic in that environment from more or less the first couple of months of me and my ex-wife getting together, interfering and stuff like that. So yeah, we just decided that move away from it was the best solution for it, and that's when my second was just born at the time, moved out, and then going further along, it came to a point where it was a time where we need to come out of the. I need to come out of the need to make a decision of whether to come out of the army or not, and where do we go, so then we can support the family, where I could potentially support the family as more, and yeah, it was sort of difficult processes at the time. There's unfortunately with the way that my family's been, there've always been interference from third parties, do's and don'ts in relationships, and it's hard. It's been toxic, very toxic.
So at what point was the decision made for you to leave the army?
Probably around...
Is it after the second child?
Yeah, after the second child. She was probably at the time... I'm just trying to work out the years when I came out. So yeah, it was 2008 I come out. So yeah, it was around about July sort of time, 2008 I come out. And my daughter, she was born in April 2007. So it was about a year, just over like a year, 18 months at the time to come out.
Did you have a job to go into? So that was around the whole stock market crash saga.
Right, this is a bit of a... Yeah, I did have a job to go to, but we couldn't afford to stay down south. The plan was to stay down south. Anyway, we couldn't afford to stay down south. The wages that I'd need to do was to get into selling vacuum cleaners. Remember Kirby vacuum cleaners?
Yeah.
It was to get into selling them down south, but the house price for a terraced house in staying in the military town was about 1,400 quid a month just to rent a house, not including any other bills, shopping, anything like that. So I'd need to clear about 3,500, 4 grand a month. Just wasn't possible. So we'd saved up enough money to sort of rent up north, and one weekend we just come up north, found a place, slapped a deposit on it, give them like 3 months worth of rent, and they was like, "Yep, happy. When do you want the keys?" And they literally was like, "There's the keys, this place is yours." The week after was my official day of getting out of the army, and we literally, got my dad to come from up north from Bolton in a big massive Luton transit van, and we literally, during the course of on the run up for me signing my papers to come out, we'd literally patch the house up. At night we used to close the curtains, pack boxes up so nobody knew what we was doing. My dad turned up on a Thursday night and we absolutely just filled this Luton box van up. It was probably over the weight, and we just moved out, and it took about 3.5 months for the army to catch on where we was. We didn't tell them because they would have probably, I'd basically accepted a job down south, but I didn't take it. But in this transition process, I found a job up north. I found a house,
So you'd left before you'd actually hit your final day.
So basically, the Friday was my last day that I had to, and all I had to do is the Friday morning was literally just go and sign my paperwork off. The weekend before, we'd said, right, we can't afford to live down south. We'll come up north and we'll come and sign for a house. So we've signed for a house, preempting that this is what we was going to do. And then I handed over and at the time I handed over my house. I'd given them an address for down south. This is where I was moving to. And then we just packed our stuff up, packed the kids up, put everything in the car, and we just come up north and just started afresh up north.
Okay.
And that was in 2008. And at the time as well, 2008. And at the time then the third child was born in the June. So third child born in June. So I was like 24 and I had 3 kids under 3.
How was it being back on Civvy Street?
Hard fucking work.
Really?
To adjust, yeah. Because the thing is with the army is that everything's regimental, everything's sort of structured in a way that for months in advance, you know what you're doing, week to week. They plan everything. You knew when you was going on exercises, and it was almost, you could almost fit your diary to it of what's going on. And you could fit your diary on when you was going on an exercise, when you was not. Everything was in months, months in advance. And you get so used to being in this structure.
People telling you where to be, what to do.
Yes, and it wasn't until you start going, obviously, up in the ranks, once you start, then you then become the leader and telling others what to do. So yeah, it took me months and months and months of trying to get over that. It took me ages to adjust back to civil life. It really did take me forever to adjust back to civilian life.
What was it like being around the family a lot more?
Yeah, it was nice. It felt really good at the time.
Yeah.
But then also I've always worked from being about 13 or 14-year-old. I've always worked. So my time, and this has probably been, some of the big negatives in our relationship is that I've always been very focused on work and work focused, and I've always ensured that I wanted to make sure that we've always got food on the table, kids have got nice clothes, live in a nice house and stuff like that. And sometimes it's not until I've taken a step back that really didn't matter at sometimes. But yeah, it was good. We tried to do as much as we can with the kids, and at the time, I was working, got into sales of vending machines, and it was I'd been doing it 3 months, selling vending machines and coffee machines, and then I got a call out of the blue off my commanding officer, and he was like, "Critchley, we know where you are." And I was like, "Oops." He was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And I was like, he said, "The only reason that we found you is because your pay slips are coming out that you're paying 2 jobs." I was like, "Oh." And he was like, "And your tax?" And it's like, "Oh, you're going to have to hand your notice in where you're working." I was like, "Oh." He said, "Because legally, officially, you can," because I'd signed an agreement that if I'd left the army on the terms of saying that I could I got offered a job down south, took the job, then but I only had 3 months left until my 12 months period for that. I had my 12-month period where I officially would have been out, because they let me go slightly earlier, about 6 months earlier. So I was like, right.
So you're still getting paid from the army?
Well, if I was to take the job that was down south, then yeah. But then the company down south contacted the army to say that I'd never turned up. So then I officially was still in the army. So I was getting. Right. So I realised that I was still getting paid into one of my bank accounts from the army, and then I was working this other job, and I was like, oh, fuck. Anyway, the commanding officer was like, right, you can't work this other job. You're officially in the army still. The HR in Glasgow said, nope, you've got to wait until your date. However, I'm going to cover for you because you've probably set up home. And I was like, yeah. It's like, I'm not going to allow you to come back down south. He said, because it'll just absolutely destroy everything. He said, I'll ring you up at the end of each month just to make sure you've got paid and that you're all well. And I was like, okay. So I was like, so what do I do? So he's like, just wait for my phone call every month. Do whatever you want. And then he was like, but nobody's stopping you if you want to work cash. And then he put phone down on me, and I was like, nice. Oh. All right. So yeah, for about 3 months, you used to get a call off the commanding officer just saying, "Critchley, you all right?" Yeah. I was like, yeah. He's like, you used to go, yeah, you've been paid. Yeah. All right. Ring you next month. That was it. So yeah, and then we
yeah, they could have.
Yeah, they could have took me back in. And
they could have sent the police after you and pulled you back.
Yeah, I could have got military police after me and everything, but
put you in lockup and.
No, I was.
that was pretty nice of him, to be fair.
Mm.
Okay, so from the day of now, you're finally officially out of the army, and you're now back up north. Your life is pretty settled at this point. Is it going well?
Arguments here and there and bickering.
And Had this only started recently, or has it been ongoing?
No, it goes back into the army as well. You know, always kind of bitching, arguing. Especially the thing with the army is that you were all, you know, it's very much a single man's place, and you're always stuck around peers that are single. And I was at that age where I was still quite young, but had 2 kids. Sometimes I acted as if I was single, and there was a number of occasions where, much to admit, that I hate to admit this, but you know, I tried to reach out and to other females at the time, and you know, try to get affirmation. And obviously, at those times when I was away, and you know, I hadn't. Oh, I'm not going to say it's cheat. It's not cheating because it is a form of cheating. But texting and messaging other people. I hadn't done any. Never in 18 years I've done anything in a physical nature, but I'd done some in a number of occasions where I'd messaged other girls, and you know, kind of, I shouldn't have done. But when you're around other single lads as well, and they kind of egg you on, and it just there was a lot of peer pressure from that. So yeah, you know, that's kind of. It is what it is, and you know, that's some of my biggest regrets over the years. So sort of leaving the army like back in 2008, and being around the family a little bit more. It was, you know, it was good to be around the 3 kids at the time. We then decided that, you know, like you say, a financial crash came in, and we then went into opening 2 pubs. Well, opening a pub, and then we got screwed over for money left, right, and centre.
I was gonna say, what a choice to open a pub. That's
in 2008 as well, smoking ban and stuff like that. It was horrendous, and that was in like over the other side of sort of Wigan area and Chorley area, and it was hard work to run that with small kids as well. It was a mission, but the ex at the time, you know, she was doing an amazing job of doing it. She got her license and stuff like that. And we always said that we wanted to give something and be a little bit more better for the kids. But then we got screwed over by the area manager, lost a hell of a lot of money. And it come to a point where that was sort of 2009, 2000, like sort of, I think it was about 2008 into 2009 it was, for about a year. It was a difficult time. And then we ended up moving back to Bolton. We ended up moving back to Bolton, and then I'm going to count now. Number 4 child come along in 2011.
Was it expected?
No, not really.
Okay.
Everyone, like, especially with 7 kids, as the one comment that we always got was, "Have you got a TV?" Have you got a TV? I'm like, no, it's broken.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, did it become every day at that point? 4 kids turning up to the hospital, was it pretty?
It was sort of.
You used to it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, definitely it was. There was use. Yeah, it was. Just to revert back to my time in the army as well, I was going through a number of difficult times where I tried committing suicide as well. I was found by the ex with cable ties around my head and around my neck.
Where was this from? Where did this stem from?
Just probably childhood traumas. Kind of parents. Also, our relationship as well wasn't the best at the time as well. And I come from, just to digress a little bit, I come from a family of broken relationships with my parents. Mum and dad, always, from me being about 5-year-old, I can remember my dad beating my mum up. I can remember my dad moving out to 7, maybe 8 different houses over probably from being about 6-year-old up until me being 17-year-old. Probably it worked out almost every 18 months to 2 years that my mum and dad had split up. So yeah, when I was 14, my nana died in front of me on holiday, and it's coming up to tomorrow's our anniversary of a death. And I was on holiday in Wales, and she died in front of all the family. Her daughters, her mum and her grandkids as well. We'd hired a minibus, and from being I was 14 at the time, and it affected me massively because she grabbed hold of me and she says, "Tell everybody I love her," and then she had a massive heart attack. My parents have always been in and out of relationships, never been sturdy relationships.
Did you ever get any support?
As a child?
Yeah.
No, because it was always brushed off. Parents would, at points as well, like living between mum and dad, almost like bought love as well, and definitely it was a tough, difficult time, and to try and always say, I always vowed that I wanted to be better than that, and I didn't, there's been a few scuffs between me and the ex, nothing majorly. There's been a few hand raises and stuff like that, and it's I'm not proud of it, and I'm not thinking, but when you've been brought up on that, where you've seen your dad punch your mum and stuff like that, that's normal. What I've seen as perceived as being normal, if I've got my parents who are meant to be my parents teaching me that this is how you be as an adult, then when you're growing up and you're seeing that, I remember being 12 or 13-year-old and used to go to my sister's bedroom and protect her because my mum and dad were arguing and fighting on the landing, and we'd had to cuddle up just because it was on our own safety, and it was horrible. Have
you ever...
And then when I was 18, just before going into the army, my mum and dad used to own a pub, and my dad had my mum out of the second story by her neck, literally going to throw her out of the window. I had to grab my mum and pull my mum in, and I literally punched my dad across the face. He hit on the floor, and I fucking legged it, and that was something that I'd never think that I'd have to do. It was difficult, very difficult.
Have you ever thought about getting support now you're older?
This is a really tough. I've had like a little bit of support at CBT and stuff like that, but I've never.
Just even if it's like, I know we're talking through it, but I mean to actually somebody
professional from what I've seen as my childhood. Do you know what? I've always wanted to do it, and I've had a few. I've always had issues sometimes temper-wise, and I've always vouched to the kids that I'll go and do it, and I've always bottled it and never done it. But I think that now in this healing journey that I'm on of my own, now's the time to reach out, and
I think you should do it.
100%, yeah.
Be good for you.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of them that it's been there at the back of my mind for a good number of years, and I've always fucking bottled it up, and I'm like, do you know what? I think now is the time to change, for not only for me but for the kids. And yeah, sorry about that. That was a bit deep and a bit raw, really.
Don't worry about it. I've had many a thing.
Yeah. So
I think we're up to, was it the fourth child?
Yeah. So the fourth child. So yeah, this was a bit of a turning point for me as well. The fourth child. So being ex-military as well, I medically trained. I then got into back working into hospitals, and I wanted to, do be a little bit more career focused and driven, and I wanted to follow my passion in medical my medical profession. So I ended up working on a couple of the wards at the local hospital in Bolton. And I was like, do you know what? I really enjoy this. And then one day I just seen a rep come onto the ward, and I sort of quizzed him about what's he doing. Da, da, da. And he was like, yeah, okay. And I then looked into medical sales job, and that's kind of how I fell into medical sales, where I'm at now. I did start off with blood collection, you know, taking blood samples and working on like the little collection devices and microbiology and stuff like that. I started off with that. But I worked for a German company, and it was very old school, and I just didn't like how they worked. Then got into the next company, who I then worked with for 7 years. So yeah, I was on good salary, good commissions, company car, always hitting my target. You know, I'd hit my quarterly bonuses, monthly bonuses, yearly bonuses, year on year. I'd hit all my bonuses for more or less the entirety of the time that I was working with them. We also kind of in 2011, 2012, we had a very close family friend who I've known for years. I used to race model cars with him, and I've known him for years upon years, probably from me being about 15-year-old, and he was a bit of a father figure for me during this time. So we kind of amalgamated a family together. He lost his... He's a lot older than me, but he'd lost his parents. He was living on his own in a big house, and we was living in a council house, and we said, why don't we just like move in together, join our costs? So at the time we did, and was then moved into a £500,000 house between Blackpool and Preston. Beautiful house, 6-bedroom house, you know, I couldn't ask for anything more. I was doing really well with sales and stuff like that. So we kind of had it all then, you know, good luxuries. And sometimes, you know, these things aren't what everything seems. My wife was the homemaker, and she was kind of gelling everything together. She's also good at, like, she also puts herself first before others. Very much putting herself before others, and always thinking of others, always helping other people out. So yeah, that was like the turning point of us hopefully seeing something better for the kids.
So how was your relationship between you and your ex at that point?
At that point, yeah, we was... From what I thought, we was all good. We was all, for a number of years, we was all good. But then it became apparent that she was... she felt like she was more of a maid or a cook and a cleaner at this house, because it was a big house that was living with. I was working away a lot with work, and then I'd go on, and then I got into racing motorbikes. So I'd go away with work, then I'd race bikes, wasn't prioritising family life, and, you know, this is where things started to sort of break down between us, because she didn't feel as valued, and, you know, she wasn't getting appreciated. Although we had all the nice things, she didn't get the basics things that she wanted, like, because obviously I was working, and I was so focused on making good money and funding the house that a lot of the other things, the affection and stuff like that, was getting brushed under the carpet.
Did she have a network around her? Of friends, family, to where you were?
She had built up a good network of people within the village, but she didn't have many people. She'd not long been driving since as well. Yeah, and then she'd used to like come backwards and forwards between over there and back to Bolton. So yeah, that was that. And then, so yeah, things was, you know, when we lived there from sort of 2012 up until when the fifth one was born. Yeah, everything seemed to be okay at the time, you know, relationship wise. But then and then it was, no, sorry, I think I've got myself wrong here a little bit. Yeah, sort of 2012 up until 2015 was everything was fine. And then it wasn't until I'd started racing bikes, which was 2014-15, that we'd started to drop off in our relationship, because I was working away, then I'd come back at a weekend, I'd get my bike stuff ready, because I used to race off-road enduro bikes, so could end up in North Wales somewhere at race meetings, and I'd be away then all weekend, and then come back Sunday, clean my bike, and then Sunday night or Monday morning I'd be then off again with work, and it was difficult. It was difficult. And then number 5 was born in the October of 2015.
Another unexpected.
Yeah.
Did you not think about stopping at a certain point?
Yeah, we wanted to stop at a certain point. Yeah, we did want a stop at the. I don't know. I just kind of liked it, I guess.
Okay.
You know?
I mean, if it's fair enough if you.
But the thing is, though, is that I've always worked, always paid for my kids, always, always been we've never really claimed any benefits or anything like that. I've always worked really hard, and yeah, so. Why not? If we wanted that many kids, then we wanted, and also kind of at it like rabbits. And my ex was, we was very compatible, we could say. And then, yeah, sort of.
So what's house like? I mean, home life like with 5 kids now running around.
Well, my ex was a saint. Absolute saint with the kids, managing everything. How she did it, I don't have a fucking clue.
And you're still in the big house at this point?
We're still in the big house at this point. But so 2015 and 2016 is, it's a turning point in our relationship, massively.
What was the trigger that?
So... I'm just trying to think of how. So, 2015, number 5 was born. All was fine. And then that was the year of my 30th. And then the following year was her 30th. I can't. It's been such a hard time mentally and emotionally. Yeah. So basically, in 20. Can we just have a moment? Just give me a sec. So yeah, 2015 and 2016 is sort of the turning point. It was her 30th in the 2016. I was still working hard. I was still heavy into my motorbikes. And yeah, so this is where, unfortunately, number 6 child isn't mine officially. It's really difficult, but yeah, it's been a tough one. To cut a long story short,
you don't have to go into details.
It's helped for me to talk about it, and it's been a difficult time. But when she started, so I used to go out riding with one guy and riding motorbikes, and then from her 30th onwards, she was sort of seeing him. One of her friends was like, "Oh, he's a good looking guy," and one of her words was like, "Oh well, he's trouble him. You don't want to get involved with him," kind of sort of to blur a vision or something. And basically, from there, it wasn't until around about June time, 2016, Our relationship was quite rocky, and during one week, my uncle, who we was then living with at the time in the big house, he'd been sent away to go to go on a holiday and go away. I'd been sent away with myself to go and stay at my dad's for a week, and then the weekend I was asked to take the kids then to my mum's. All along between sort of the February up until the June, that I believe that she was seeing this bloke on and off at weekends. The times when I was sort of looking after the kids and staying at home, and when she'd say she was going out, and then sometimes she wouldn't answer a phone, or she wouldn't even communicate with me. She was off with this other bloke. And then I sort of noticing things like hiding a phone, turning the phone, sleeping with a phone underneath a pillow, and I know in the past I've texted other women, and and it's not always been out of to get for me to gain anything from it. It's always been kind of out of something that's been missing there between myself and my ex-wife, and probably a little bit of validation and stuff like that. But yeah, so in the June I then went away. I went to my dad's. Kids was with her, and it was just a bit of a break. And then that weekend, one night I left with the kids on the Friday to go and see my mum in North Wales, and then come back. But there's something peculiar about it. Just something really was odd. Anyway, we used to have CCTV cameras, and I seen her literally all dressed up, jumped in the car and fucked off out for a night. So the Saturday morning, I had the kids packed in the car for 6 o'clock in the morning, and I literally put my foot down on the motorway. And we was on the phone then, she was ringing me, and I could tell she was driving as well. And I pulled up to the house, pulled the kids, and she didn't expect me to be home. And she was like, what you doing home? And I was like, oh yeah, I said I was going to come home early. I weren't staying at my mum's. And she didn't admit anything, but she didn't deny anything, and she didn't say anything. And I broke down. I was sat on the grass. I broke down in tears. I'm like, what's going on with that? We need to sort our relationship out. But during all this period of time, we were still sleeping together. We were still in the same bed. We were still, still being amicable as a family, or keeping the family. But obviously she was leading this second life. And then I said to her, Luke, okay, then I'm not away as much. I'll give up my medical sales job, and I've been doing it 7 years, which put all the house in jeopardy and everything. And I was like, I'll just give it up and I'll go and work somewhere local. And I got a job in the motorbike shop up in the Lake District. And that was it. And then the week before my wedding anniversary, I found out via a text message off her that she'd been having an affair and that she was pregnant, and that they'd done a paternity test, like a prenatal paternity test. Basically, you can take before the baby's even born, you can take a blood sample, send it away for analysis, and they can check whose DNA it is. And
it's quite a risky thing to do, that one.
It is one. And then I found out off her via a text message that she was pregnant. But the week before I come home, so basically the week before I'd come home from working in the lakes, and it was a Wednesday. I remember it clear as anything, because the Tuesday before, I got a new van, a Caddy van. My van blew up, so I got a Volkswagen Caddy van. And my intention was, I'd sold my motorbike that weekend, got about $5,000 for it. Sold my motorbike, buy this van, then use the remainder of the money to put on a deposit to go and get a new bike, because I wanted a new bike because I was getting a bit more into racing and stuff like that. And yeah, I got to this van and she dropped it off for me. She went and paid for it and I give her the money and she went and paid for it. And it was a little bit more than whatever. And yeah, it turned out that I said to her, oh, there's some extra money there, keep it or whatever, do over whatever. And yeah, on the Wednesday, so I got the van on the Tuesday, she dropped it off with a friend. And then on the Wednesday, I go home, house is in darkness, no kids. Normally the house was buzzing with kids. Goes upstairs, no clothes, all the wardrobes, all the thingies. Literally, she pre-planned everything to move out, to get a council place. And she'd literally pre-planned everything. And I was like, what the fuck? I was in floods of tears. She wouldn't tell me where she was. She wasn't telling me. And I was like, I was hounding her, where are you, where are you? And then obviously I was in floods of hysterics. Took her about a day and a half, maybe 2 days for her to tell me where she was. And she was about 10 or 12 miles away in the next like semi-rural village. And I was like, what the fuck? And then, like I said, the following week was a week before our wedding anniversary. I got a message to say that she was pregnant, but she didn't tell me. And then the week, almost like the following week, I then get another message and she tells me whose it is. And I was like, for fuck's sake, fucking absolutely ruined me. Absolutely ruined me. Yeah, it was fucking tough.
Have you ever spoke to
him? He was none the wiser as well. I used to race bikes with him. I used to go out with him every other weekend, and her excuse was already split up, was on a break. But you know, whether I took at the time as well, I don't know whether I took in it as the wrong end of the stick. But we were still, you know, our relationship. You know, none of us had not stopped staying in the same bed. Our sex life had gone down a bit, but we were still sleeping with each other. You know, we wasn't split up, but we wasn't sleeping in separate beds. So it kind of felt like things had sort of dwindled off, but wasn't, you know, there was something missing, but it wasn't there. So then come 2017, this is when she found out she was pregnant, and then he was due in around about the May time. Between sort of October and sort of January time, we was on better speaking terms, and I don't know how, but we sort of rekindled sort of things between us. We'd had a bit of we'd had a break. We wasn't official or anything, but we just was, you know, unfortunately there was the odd occasion where we'd slept with each other, and she'd said she called it off with him properly. He wanted to, when baby was born, wanted to take her to court for full access.
full access?
Yeah, I don't.
What's that?
As in, he wanted full-time custody of baby. It was...
So that's not going to happen.
No. Anyhow, so yeah, he ended up taking the ex to court as well. And I was like, right, just, I'll pay. I'll help you. I'll pay. We'll do it. And it was difficult. It was really difficult. And I can't, he's coming up to, he's 7 now. And to be honest, I can't fault him as a dad. He's brilliant. He's really good. You know, he has his son every weekend. He'll take his son on holidays with him, and, you know, he's brilliant. Even my 2 younger kids call him daddy, whatever, as well. You know, they kind of get on with him and they know him, and even he knows the difference. You know, the little lad, he knows that he's got 2 daddies, and you know, it's.
Do you get on well with him? Is there still?
There's still some animosity there. There's still, we kind of feel the both that we've been fucked around by the same person, and we've kind of come to that, and we're on the same wavelength as that.
But your friendship's pretty much dead now.
Yeah, I could ring him up and have a conversation with him, but where I used to go out riding with him each weekend and whatnot, and used to be always on the floor, send typical bloke WhatsApp stuff like that. It's not like that anymore. But yeah, so that was like up until he was born, and then so we sort of rekindled things, and then we had the final one. We had number 7. Was it? Sometimes some people ask me, was it the correct decision to do, and was it the correct thing to do to have 7 kids, and especially after the 6th and the situation.
So you got back together at this point?
Yeah, we got back together.
Okay.
We got back together.
And was it going well?
Do you know what? It felt like the honeymoon. It felt like the beginning couple of years when we first got back together. It was fucking brilliant, It was really good. Yeah, and
Another unplanned,
yeah. So at this time as well was a turning point where I decided as well that I needed to get back into medical sales. So I got back into medical sales, but this was all pre-pandemic. So I worked for a big medical company, and I had quite a bit of involvement in face masks and gloves pre-pandemic, and my daughter was then born in 2018. Yes, 2018 she was born, and then pandemic was like 2019. So basically, in a nutshell, we'd been given a tender, which is like a contract, which is a pre-pandemic tender. So in the case of a pandemic, what could your said company do? Blah, 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 blah. So we kind of sort of knew what was going on potentially, and then a few months later, pandemic hit. It was really weird. But as my daughter was born, I was at a point where I'd got back into medical sales for about 18 months. I'd left the bike shopping around 2016, and then 17 and 18 for about 18 months I got back into medical sales because I just absolutely love medical sales. And so it was sort of then, and then she wanted more help at home, and I was like, oh, just sack it, I'm just going to give my job in the December. And my daughter was born in the November, one day after our wedding anniversary. So yeah, it was like I just was like, that was it. And then decided to go back to college, had some money saved and bits and bobs, and went and learned how to paint cars. A sort of complete different change of career in 2019, and then pandemic hit. And then, yes, and then sort of, this is running up to more present years as well, is that, then I got another friend who's sort of now in a relationship with my ex-wife. It's crazy how it's all turned around. My life's fucked up.
I've heard some terrible stories.
So obviously we was all locked down, wasn't we? Pandemic, and that was difficult. But pre-pandemic, I got into, but I've always been hands-on type of person. I've always like getting my hands dirty. Dad's a mechanic, so I've always got into, never been involved in cars or stuff like that properly. So I got into modified cars. I met what was meant to be a really good mate through the car scene, just through cars. He was in a bit of a shit place, lived above a garage, had nowhere really to live, and then we just grew as friends, really, really close, and he was a mutual friend between me and the ex-wife. I could go to him when I felt like I had problems, and she could go to him, and he didn't take sides or anything like that. It was a good shoulder to cry on, and he kind of understood us both. But then, sort of COVID at the back end of the second lockdown, it was difficult because like the whole of our house got locked down for about 9 weeks, and we had to, at the time I was living in a council house, and we had to move to a bigger council house at the time. All the kids was ill, the wife was ill, I was ill as well, and we had to move on as well to move during pandemic. So it was a bit, but I was in a state where I was absolutely wiped out, and to be honest, I wasn't the best, and I learned all the way onto it. I hardly ever helped to pack up the house, to move. It was a bit of a difficult process. And here we end up getting the move sort of done. And then, as I said, this friend of ours, we found out that it was coming up to winter in sort of 2021. 2021. I found out that it was living above an actual car garage in the winter, and it was like nowhere to live. And we was like, well, come and move in with us. We had the room too, and was like, yeah, come in to move with us. And yeah, that was fine. I was still at college, and at the time as well, I was also trying to open my own business of doing car body repairs, but it was miles away from home. It wasn't working logistically. It was like a 25-mile round trip each day, every day to this thing. And some weeks I'd make some money. Sometimes I'd been at a loss, and other weeks it was like, why am I even bothering? To try, but I kept giving it a good go for like neck end of 12 months. Anyway, so this is where I work mining. So this is what leads up to almost the breakup of our relationship and where we are now. Basically, we'd helped him out in like financially, bought him a car, we clothed him, put a roof over his head, never really wanted anything for anything off him. But unfortunately, he was a bit of a leech. Like, he kept taking stuff from us. Or as much as I felt like it was being generous and helping him out. It just felt like he was taking from us and taking a bit of an advantage from us. And so this is another friend. So I was like, right, okay. And then he then decides that he then moves away for a couple of months to go and work in Wales or something, and then comes back up here, up north, and then starts working at the local pub. My ex, starts working at the local pub with him as well, and they sort of built up their own friend network of people that go in the pubs, and and it was at a point where, and I'm not a big social drinker, and they'd go out with their friends, and obviously they was building up a friendship, and some, that was building up their friendship. And although it's my friend, they was becoming very, very close. And I'm not a big drinker, so I'll go out for a drink, but sometimes I'd rather go too far, or sometimes I'm like, can't be arsed drinking. I'm not a big drinker, I'm not a massive drinker. And then, that was it. We got introduced to swinging. Don't ask, but he was into it, and we got introduced into swinging.
I'll let you tell me about that later.
No, I won't. But yeah, don't. That's a different story. But,
I'm curious.
But anyway, 2 and 2 makes 4, so you can see what went on between the three of us. And
so how did it come to the point of them two getting really close?
so I was trying to work at the unit as well. I was then, I was working at my unit, coming back. Then I'd also help out with the kids as best I can. My job's one of the things that I've always done since I'm being born or whenever I've been at home, is always bath them, get them in pyjamas, ready for bed, and then particularly young ones, settle them at night. And like, even when they were babies, I'd say 9 times out of 10, apart from when she was breastfeeding, 9 times out of 10, I've always got up in the night and done the nighttime feeds, just as my part. And sometimes, I'm a typical bloke. I'm not the best at housework, but I've tried. And sometimes we as blokes, we always get given, you do your you try to do a task, and then the next minute it's wrong, not up to their standards. And
So you give up at that point.
You give up at that point, yeah. So, I've always tried my best at those. But yeah, so sort of back end of sort of 21, 22, into 22 was, I was having CBT therapy. Felt like our relationship was sort of, felt like it was breaking down. And obviously I wanted some CBT to try and help out, which it did help. It put me on in a little bit of a better mindset. I probably feel that I should have had more lengthy sessions with them, but it is what it is. But over this course of this time, there was building up a good friendship, blah, blah, blah. And that was that. And then the end of Christmas of 2022 is sort of like, we split up then officially in the February, March of 2023. And in sort of 2022, the end of Christmas was like, we weren't getting on very well. Lots of bitching and arguments. Kind of a toxic environment. It wasn't good for the kids. And obviously then, after Christmas, we decided that that's it. Time, rather than cut our, it's time to cut our losses and sort of move on, really, as much as we didn't want to, I don't think there was any particular reason for the split up, but it's just a lot of little catalysts on top of each other. And it's always, you kind of, between the two of us, and mainly she's always said to me, it's been, there's always been a breakdown in communication. Showing compassion and being a little bit more caring is like where I've majorly fallen down at. So it was around about the February, not long after a birthday that we decided, and I ended up having to stay in the house for a couple of weeks, and then I started looking for places myself to live, which was difficult because I've never been a big adult, so I've never had to pay, for the last 18 years, I've always gone, with money, I've always gone, right, there's my wages, you sort out everything else. I've never been one involved when it comes to financial and stuff like that. I've kind of always shied away, and I've always gone, right, look, I'll make the money, you just pay all the bills. And it's not that I've never not been able to have access to money.
You've just not had the responsibility of
dealing with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've kind of, there it is, you deal with it.
Yeah. So sometimes I've sort of never realised that those added pressures that she's been under as well when it comes to like maintaining all the bills and making sure that she's balancing the eggs. And
it's not that difficult.
Do you know what? Now that I've been away for like 18 months, I'm so religious when it comes to my own fucking bills. I've got my own spreadsheet set out. I know exactly when all my dates of all my direct debits go out.
Most stuff's direct debit nowadays.
It is,
and your bank happy and actually tells you what's coming out at what point.
Yeah.
It's probably not as hard now as what it used to be.
But so that's another story because I've been screwed.
It is a big thing going from someone else managing all your funds if you're the case of you're passing it off and not even thinking about what are the outgoings. Probably what we pay water.
Yeah. I was like,
you pay water, you pay gas, you pay electric, you pay
crazy,
TV license,
yeah.
House insurance.
Yeah.
You probably never even think about them. But there's a lot of bills that go into the house.
Definitely. So yeah, as I said, so sort of February we made the decision. I had to stay in the house then for a couple of months, and I was just like sofa surfing, bed hopping. We had a 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom house at the time. The friend, he was downstairs in the like dining room. That was his bedroom. We converted it into him. So then So yeah, basically, yeah, that was it. And then I was looking at just one bedroom places, and then my daughter was like, "Dad, can I move out with you?" And my daughter's at the time, she was 16, 15, yes, coming up to 16, and she's never really got on well with mum. She's got a few mental health issues and troubles, and yeah, she was basically like, yeah. I was like, yeah, okay. So then my plans had to change from looking at one bedroom places to finding a 2 bedroom place, which was a little bit more expensive. And at the time as well, I was working. I was working in a body shop, but I sort of had part-time hours, but they wasn't part-time hours. So what sort of worked was, particular sort of from like sort of November to before me moving out. I was picking up the kids, so I'd make sure I'd drop off the kids. It was like 6 miles away from the school from the town that we lived. We didn't want to change, because when we moved, we didn't want to change the schools because it was a little village school. So in the morning, I'd drop the kids off, get to work for 9:30, finish work at just before like 2:30. So then I could collect the kids and then bring them home. And that was my day most days. And it worked really well, we had a good system and I was working part-time. I was on half decent money. And yeah, so that was it. And so then I had to look for my own place, and I said to her, I'm looking for my own place. And she was like, oh, well, you could have stayed here. And I was like, well, it's not really going to work, is it? I'm staying here, sofa surfing, and yeah, it kind of felt like she had a bit of a hump that I was looking out and looking for places. It felt a bit weird anyhow. So yeah, so we just sort of.
Did she want to stay together?
Well, no, she said, she said that obviously we're splitting up, but that's the kind of vibes that I got when she
that's
she
what
questioned
it kind of implies.
When she questioned me about me going looking for places to look, because I started sort of looking sort of mid-Marchish, and it wasn't until April that I actually moved out. It was 1st of April, I remember it, of last year. But yeah, she kind of almost, that was what she was implying, that I stayed there. Whether it was to help out more financially, I don't really know. So yeah, anyway, I'd moved out, and at the beginning of the year, this friend of mine busted his leg. He snapped a tendon in his back of his leg trying to break into somebody's house because somebody had passed away inside the house, and they needed to. Anyway, it turns out, so he was off work for like about 16 weeks at the time. So he was bedbound downstairs. So this was literally right after Christmas in January. And my wife was like tending to him, like helping him out. He couldn't walk, making his tea, kind of being the helpful soul that she is, And I was like, yeah, no worries. And then at the end of May, then my ex had a mini stroke. She had a mini stroke a couple of years before, around about 2018, 2019. And she also suffers from fibromyalgia. I kind of sort of grew rose. It wasn't until sort of earlier on, sort of like when we'd split up, that she'd obviously got this diagnosis as fibro, but I was always kind of a little bit blasé about it, and she kept having these flare-ups, and she was trying to get sort of diagnosed and stuff like that. But yeah, so he'd snapped his tendon and he was on the road to recovery. She had a mini stroke. So then I had to come back to the house for about 10 to 14 days just to help out with the kids, which was a really weird situation to be in. I just got my own place, and then I was asked to come back, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll help. So she was like, he'd just gone back to work, but she was staying downstairs in his room on his bed, and then at weekends when he was still there, she was still staying downstairs in his bed. Don't. Anyway, so then, but yeah, so Sorry, I've lost my chain of thought. So I ended up coming back and helping with the kids a couple of weeks. And then she started recovering slowly. She basically had a mini stroke down one side. And it took her a couple of months, and she lost some of her mobility down one side, but slowly regained it, but not back to full mobility, but almost back to, I'd say, 80 or 90%. So she managed to get some of her recovery done. And then that sort of led us up until around about after summer, and then I was right into November, and I just decided that I needed to do something better with my life, and I got offered 2 job opportunities.
Yeah.
Back in medical sales, which I am now, and one was to work in the UK, or the other job opportunity was to go to Dubai. And at the time, I also, through all of this, my ex-wife, her mother, had been diagnosed with cancer. And then my grandma was also going through cancer as well. And unfortunately, so I'd been and seen my grandma, and my grandma was like, go away, go to Dubai. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to Dubai. So all that weekend I was set that I was taking the job for the same company. I was taking the Dubai job. And that weekend I had my kids as well. And I was like, and my youngest daughter's been my absolute saviour. She has been the one that's kept me going the most in the last 18 months. And I was with her, and I was cuddling her on the sofa, and she just looked at me and she goes, I love you, Daddy, and just give me a kiss. And I was like, and at the time she was 4, coming up to 5. And I was like, oh no, she just turned 5. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't go to Dubai. And it was basically like 3 months on, a couple of weeks off, 3 months on. And I was like, I just can't go to Dubai and do this. I'd break that little girl's heart. So I ended up taking the UK job, which I'm glad I did, to be honest. So yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that you're in Dubai, because you won't be seeing the kids that often, you'd have a huge amount of your salary garnished.
Yeah, definitely. It was good salary, but then I'd still have a house to fund over here.
Yeah,
because my daughter's living with me.
Yeah, you won't benefit from the zero tax because you're only doing it 3 months at a time. You wouldn't actually be a native, or whatever it is, a resident.
It was crazy. So I was like, okay. So no, I made the wise decision of staying in the UK. And September, my eldest lad, he was like, started college, and college is literally over the road from me. And he was like, next minute, he's like, Dad, I'm staying here. So he's been staying in my living room on a mattress in my bedroom, in my living room. So I've now got my eldest son. I've now got my daughter as well.
Gonna have to get a bigger house.
I'm trying, but the council was horrendous trying to get housed and stuff like that, and it's. But
wait till the rest of them turn up.
Don't. And then this was beginning. So I'd applied for these jobs at the end of November, literally the last week in November. The following week, the beginning of November, I got offered the jobs, and I was starting work that week. I then turn up at the Sunday before I started work, I had the kids. She had to go down south because her mum was literally bless her soul, was on a deathbed, and unfortunately on the Sunday her mum passed away. She then come back, which was difficult obviously for her. She just literally watched her mum pass away, and then I was like, and she was she was really understanding. I was like, I need to go need to go back to go obviously start this job. I was starting this job on the Monday. I had to get the train down to the head office, and then all fine Monday, and then Tuesday morning I get a telephone call. My grandma died on the Tuesday in the morning.
No.
So, the ex lost her mother, who was a big part of our family, and, And then I lost my grandma, who was also a massive part of our family as well, just 2 days apart from each other in the December.
Jeez.
And like, work was like, you're part of the team. If you want to go, just go. And I'm like, no, it's the grandma would. I was like, no, I've been told I've got to stick it. I've got to do everything will work out. And I was like, and my grandma was adamant. She said, Daniel, you just get on with it, and you provide for these kids. You look after these kids. And I was like, I just sort of put my head down, and I went that morning. I went back to my room because we had on-site accommodation. I had a cry for about an hour, and then I just was like, right, I've got to do this. And so I just carried on my training as normal and just got through my new starter training, which was difficult, like. And then at this point as well was like, it was like decisions of like getting divorced and stuff like that. And
Are you divorced now?
Yeah, I've been divorced since May.
Pretty much. Your timeline is virtually the same as mine.
8th of May. So
it's so similar.
So obviously, the thing that's been the difficult is obviously I've had a mate betray me before with and her the feeling of betrayal as well with what's gone on previously. And then obviously, unfortunately, her and him, who's now living with him, has sort of made up this, they become more than friends. And, he's been supporting her through times of needs when she's needed it, taking her to see her mum on occasions before she passed away and stuff like that, and being really supportive. And, I'll be forever grateful for that, because obviously I wasn't around there as much as I was. I was around there to have my kids and look after the kids while she could go and do what she needed to do regarding her mum and family situations. And then, like I said, there's been times where we'd helped him out over the years financially and felt that, he'd just been there for his own financial gains and stuff like that. And then they're just, it was just situations when kids say, we've not got a dining room anymore. The kids literally oftenly come out with it. We've not got a dining room anymore. Mummy and Jay are now sleeping upstairs in your bedroom. And I was like, right, okay, something was going on. And I never really questioned it or anything like that. But I kind of, in the back of my mind, I knew that there was something on it, going on. And then, fortunately, TikTok's a very toxic place sometimes. And there was just like, I could see some of her stories and I was like, and I could see that there was just more to life than what she was making out and what she was perceiving and telling me. And I was like,
She got it public?
Yeah.
Okay. I try and stay away from that. It's not good for you.
I've it's been blocked now. So it was like, and I was like, really? Okay. And then I find out that I got my divorce papers I was away at my head office. I got a message to say, the divorce has been finalised on the 8th. I was away in the office and my papers didn't land until the 10th of May. And then I found out she's in a relationship with him on the 10th of May. I was like, oh my goodness. But, unfortunately, I've known it's been going on, but they've just been denying it, that it's been going on. And the worst thing is that I felt that, do you know what? I really wish that she could have been honest and said, yeah, there is something going on between us. And
well, she couldn't have, to be fair, because there's a section in the divorce paper that says, are you going to be cohabiting with anyone?
Ah, okay.
And I'm guessing she put no.
Ah, okay.
Is it, because did you do a DA21?
We just literally filed
Wait, did you do a financial order?
No. We didn't need to because we had no assets.
You divorced on paper.
Yeah.
But my understanding is you're still financially connected.
we've when we did that online divorce. Well, I'll have to look into this because we didn't actually.
The two separate things.
Right.
You do the one through the government website.
Yeah.
And that's to legally get divorced.
Yeah.
But there's a separate piece of paper, which is called a consent order, or it's to then financially separate you.
Right.
You're still financially connected together.
Are we?
Yes. I'd look into it.
Oh, okay.
You are. If say you died, they'd share some.
No, we've got it.
Or what did you do?
I don't know. I'll have to show you. I'll send you.
Yeah. I got. So did you just do it through the website?
Yeah. And we just cut all financial ties, so there's nothing because she's not got access to any pension, nothing.
I mean, the pension part gets broken when you get divorced. That's standard.
Yeah.
But there's a separate one because they say all the time on TikTok. You can get divorced, but then you have to get financially separated.
All right. Okay.
They are two different pieces of paper, and they call it a D81, which is a consent order.
All right. Okay.
So you can go through all the. Normally, what you'll do is you'll start going through. You go through your application, then you got to go through your 20-week waiting period.
Yeah, I've done that.
And then what you start doing is putting your consent order together.
Right.
Or you then have to go to court for your Form E, which is your full financial history, which costs you a fortune. And that's where you have to disclose the last 12 months of your bank statements. And then that's when all cards are on the table. Once you come up with an amount each, that gets sent to court and it's stamped. And then when you get the acceptance for the final order, you then send off the financials to court and they'll rubber stamp it to say you're now separated. So what you can do is you line one up, so when the other one's ready to do your final, you can send it off to court.
Okay.
I think you're still financially tied. I'd check into it. I mean, there is... if she's looking to get married at some point, all that means is once you get...
She strips her order then if she gets...
that prevents her making a claim on you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If she remarries, then that prevents... And if
But then if you go for an order at that point, you're actually making a claim from what I believe, both assets.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because
there's a woman who's she wears glasses on.
Yeah.
Have you seen her? The one with the glasses.
Think it legal queen or something.
That's it. And she goes on about financial orders and
I
stuff.
think they call it the remarriage trap.
Yeah.
Where if you get divorced and you've not actually done the financials, and then one person gets remarried, they lose his claim, but then the other person doesn't.
The one who's not married can then claim on both parties
because their assets are joined.
Yeah.
Just look into it.
I will have a look into it.
Yeah, just
because I'm sure that we signed a section on our marriage certificate to say that no financial ties together. I'm sure of it.
I didn't think that could be done under a standard application. I thought it had to be done separate. Normally, then you have to sign it and send it off to court.
When did your marriage? When did you go through? How long ago did you go through your divorce? Then
pretty much same as you. So
I think we started ours in about September, October. So it was a new.
I think it was about similar.
It was and
then
because it's on the new divorce,
which is
terms.
So much better, not the 2 year waiting or 5 whatever it is. But mine came through the 2nd of May.
Bloody hell! Yeah, we were very close.
Very,
and we're both gingers as well. So
divorce friends.
That's why we can relate. We're both gingers as well. So that's kind of, and then that's kind of where I'm at now, presently, really. I've not dated since.
No? Okay.
I tell a lie. I went on one date with a.
How was that?
It was that awkward.
Really?
because I've not dated in like 18 years. 19 years since like when I was 20s when I first met. We've done a few date nights together and you know, something like that.
How did you come to the point of getting on a date? How did you meet the person? So smile.
It was on eHarmony, I think.
Okay.
Paid for the subscription for 3 months and then tried to cancel it, and it cost me a fortune to cancel it.
Really?
You got to cancel it within the terms of the agreement, otherwise they take the.
Probably get you.
Yeah. So you know, I'm on a few dating sites on like Facebook dating groups, just kind of for the banter
I've heard so many people talk about that.
like single parent dating apps, and then I'm on like Facebook dating and a Bumble, a couple of others. But to be honest, I've been on one date that was last September, and do you know what? I felt guilty.
Really?
I felt really fucking guilty for going on it because it was like, I don't know, you know, I had a bit of a guilty feeling for going on it, and I've kind of like, I just found it difficult, and I'm, you know, I've had so many, you know, I've been October as well last year before starting all my work, I was suicidal, and I've been suicidal before previously, and it was difficult. I had basically ex-wife said, I kind of said it out of context, and I shouldn't have said it. He said, "Oh, I'm going to go and throw myself off a bridge," and blah blah blah. Then the next minute, I had the police call me, welfare check on me, and it was kind of difficult, really difficult, to be honest. Just because lots of.
Yeah, you can't say any of that shit. They'll use it against you.
Yeah, I know.
And they'll use it as an excuse for you to not be around the kids.
Yeah, and so that's it. So I was like, anyway, I just felt like I was not in a place to date. I want to get my own mental health, I'm not a stickler against mental health support, and I'm not a stickler against mental health. I've been supporting my daughter for it, and she's been going through some tough times, and I think now's the time that I need to reach out and get some proper help for myself, and I've understood that, and it's just been I've been a bit scared in the past to do it, but you know, I want to heal myself rather than, you know, jumping straight into a relationship, and I kind of in a sense felt that that's what she's done, is that she's not had it, you know, whether some people take longer or less time to heal. I feel that my own perception is that she's not fully healed, and she kind of was seeing this friend of mine on and off and building up her friendship, and then sort of almost fallen into a relationship with him. And I kind of feel that, you know, I've not done that, and I'm not going to do that, because I want to ensure that I'm comfortable in myself, and that I've tried to heal from any past traumas, or, you know, and go and make myself feel a little bit better before I commit again. You know, 20 years, almost 20 years of
long time
in a relationship, and it's like, it's a hell of a long time.
Take a bit of time.
And that's it. And last time I was in the gym was when I left the army, 2008, 2009 sort of time. I've been to the gym once or twice in sort of 10 years. And this week I started the gym. This week I started the gym, and I booked an holiday as well this week.
A singles holiday. Where to?
Mallorca.
Okay.
But I'm not going to...
It's not 1930s, is it?
No, it's not. It's not... I'm not going to Magaluf or anything, though I'd love to. But I think I'm a bit too old for that, coming up almost... I'm almost 40 next year. I was shaking like a leaf when I booked it. I was like that. I was like proper shaking, trying to book this holiday. So I'm literally... I've got the kids at the end of August for a week, and then I just said to my boss, "Oh, I'm going to book an holiday in September," and he's like, "Yeah, go for it." So I'm going away for 5 days, 4 nights in September, and I'm literally just going to do a bit of a tour of the island. I just want to. It's been hard, like 18 months, for the last 18 months, just, I don't know where I've been going, my head's been all over the place. I've said to my older ones, look, I'm going to book a holiday. I said, I'll make sure there's food in, I'll make sure that, they're 18 and 17, so they're more than self-sufficient to run a house. I said, look, I'll make sure you've got a bit of money in as well for you to get anything. I said, and I'm just going away Monday to Friday, so then I can just go switch off, go and do something that I've not done ever in my life before on a solo holiday. And I'm just literally going to hire a motorbike whilst I'm over there, or a scooter, and I'm just going to go to all these little Instagram villages and just go and do something completely out of my normal.
That'd be good.
I can't wait.
Be good.
But yeah, so that's it.
How's your relationship now with your ex?
I wish it could be better. We don't fully see eye to eye.
Is there still that bit of the animosity?
Yeah,
or
there's
anger or something?
Yeah, there's a little bit there. I just feel that, there's still some. I think there's not been any real formal closure. But I think sometimes saying nothing is closure as well.
You won't. I think at this point you're not going to get closure.
No, it's not. And I think the best thing that I can be is just be as best as a dad that I can be for the kids. And, there was an accusation that I was stalking her on Facebook and whatever. Anyhow, I had the police called out to my house and they come. And then the copper was like...
Stalking her on Facebook?
Yeah, I went on my lad's phone, seen Facebook, seen some, and I was like, right, okay, fine, that's it, put phone down. But yeah, so I was like, she said that I was using the kids to find out if she was in the house and stuff like that, and I was like, there's a couple of occasions where my kids have rung me up and gone, Mum's not in, and I'm like, where's Mum? And there was like, oh yeah, she's gone out, but she's left us all. My son was at the time was 15 and my daughter's 12 at the time. And I was like, right, okay, whatever. So loads of politics, and I was like, oh, fuck's sake. But yeah, so basically it was, she called the police, and she basically said to this copper, oh yeah, he's been using such and such a Facebook. And the copper questioned her, and her response was something like along the lines of, oh, he just has. And he come up, he spoke to me on the phone, and I was like, look, I just want to grey rock her. I said, there's many occasions where she pesters me on the phone, I said, or I get umpteen million messages, and it won't be something that's relating to the kids. It's always off topic, And he said, well, just ignore her. I said, well, that's what I want to do.
At this point, if that's how it still is, that's...
So I grey rocked her, and I said to her, I had the kids one weekend after the incident, and having the telephone conversation. I said, look, I think for us to move forward, you only message me, whether it's regarding the kids. If you need to ring me, you ring me in emergency. If it's regarding the kids, I said, no other random telephone conversations, so can you please refrain from calling me? And it's been sort of 3 months now, and she's not bombarded with telephone calls like she used to do. And I think that's the best way. Sometimes she'll we're on a messaging app, if we're moving on, if I've not picked up, she'll message the kids and say, Dad, look at your messages. But I just sometimes I'll look at it and I won't even reply. Just because it's, I just think I don't want it to get any more toxic than sometimes it do. Sometimes.
I know, similar with my ex, we used to be really good friends, and in part at times missed that because we used to be really good friends. But now when we text, it's either extremely, every so often we'll drop into the pleasantries about the kids, and it'll go friendly, this is funny, that's funny. And it's this is nice, we can talk. We both like the kids, and we're talking very pleasantly. I like that. But it used to be I'd get a random phone call. Yeah. And then phone calls used to very easily escalate.
Always do. And
so whenever I saw the phone ring, I
And unless you voice record them and there's anything out of the context, then
I don't do that.
Exactly. But no, it's Yeah, so we're at a point now where we're just sort of amicable. Sometimes, like when doing kids handovers, she's not even there, and I'm like, oh well, she won't come to the door, and I just think, well, I'll just do it, and that's it. It is what it is, and sort of like I say, I try to be there as much as I can for the kids. I try to be as flexible as I can be. Obviously, work permitting. I've got my own house to fund now, and yeah.
I don't understand where the animosity still is after there's a breakdown, and I mean, it's not even like you've moved on with somebody, and she does have someone, but you can tell there is some sort of anger or just annoyance on her part. But I don't understand it. I'm sure hopefully someone else could explain it a little bit better. But
yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, I just so yeah, I'm just sort of trying to focus on myself now and just and be there as a dad for all of the kids. The two middle ones don't come to my house as often as I like. But they're at that age where they're 13 and 16, and they don't particularly want to be around the dads. They've got their own spaces at the mums, and it's like, and as I said, like, I'm always I try to communicate with them as much as I can, but they're typical teenagers.
yeah, they tend to be dead. What is it? They're close, then they'll go away, and at a certain age they'll come back again.
So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay. Well, I've kind of got a few questions, pretty much just to wrap it all up, really. The first one is, looking back, did you notice any red flags in the relationship that you overlooked? I was going to say, thinking back, I don't recall too many. Normally when I've spoken with these, the red flags have been very apparent, but none of them really jumped out.
No, I think the only major red flag that's ever been is like hiding financial situations. Like she's hide bills and stuff like that. And that's led me to be in a lot of debt at the moment. Like promise of like credit cards being paid off and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's been, has been, not clear communication on the financial situations has possibly been one of the biggest red flags, really.
Yeah, you don't tend to find that until it's...
Until you find the bills, and I'd hidden everywhere, and yeah.
Does what you've been through make you hesitant about relationships in the future?
100%. 100%. I think the biggest thing is being betrayed and the lack of trust. I could say that I've played a part in that as well when I've texted other females, and hands up, I'll hold my fucking hands up, and but I think the betrayal of trust between my friends at the time as well, and her as well, and then obviously more recent terms as well, my who's meant to be my best friend as well, as betrayed my trust as well when we've it's been one of those things. So, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I totally get the whole
betrayed.
Yeah, it just cuts that a little bit extra deeper.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to somebody who's... It's just needless, and it does hurt. I know exactly what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently regarding either being in the relationship or from the point of separation? I'll let you pick, but would you have acted differently in any way?
Of course I would, yeah. Of course I would have. I think that would have learned how to sort of... My communication hasn't always been the greatest, but I think I would have took more, listened a little bit more and tried to communicate a little bit more openly, rather than feeling like sometimes I've not been able to have a voice, or not been able to voice my opinions. But yeah, I think yeah, just communication has been one of the biggest factors in our breakdown, or the lack of communication.
That was pretty much one of the big things I picked up.
What is lack of communication?
Well, no, just communication in general. That was like a big important thing. But
Yeah, definitely. That's been the case. Is communication? There's been times where there's been lack of it, and sometimes we've been quite open with communication, but majority of the time it's been lack of communication, particularly in the latter parts. You know, when she had number 6, our spark has sort of rekindled, and we was back to where we was being open and honest with each other. And then it's up and on until the last sort of, I'd say, the last 24 months before we'd split up. Yeah, last sort of 2 years, 18 months is where our communication had dropped off again. And that's probably what has been possibly the biggest catalyst to our failure.
Would you ever get married again?
At this present moment in time, no. But
Do you think you'll ever be open to get married again? Or would you even want to be in the position?
who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
I know.
That's I don't, going from what I've gone and experienced in the last 18 years, I'd say no. However, nobody wants to die as a single, type person, or, but yeah, obviously I've got my family now, I've got my kids. So who knows what the future holds, I'm an open book, but I don't see myself getting married in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
I'll find out that financial order first.
No. Would you have any more kids?
No, I can't have any more kids because I've had the snip.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Do you know what? I had it done in after my last one was born in 2019. Yeah. When was she born? 2018. No, it was 2019 it was. And I went to the GPs and he was like, "Yep." He goes, "What are you here for?" I was like, "I want to get the snip." He's like, "How old are you?" I told him my age. "How many kids have you got?" 7. He went, "Do you not want any more?" I went, "Nope." He went, "Right." I signed it off.
No issues there.
And then about 2 months later, I got a letter through. "Oh, you've been invited to a pre-op." I was like, "Oh, it's at a Bupa as well. Private." Yeah. Goes for my pre-op. Turns up. Right, come back on the Friday. This was like the Wednesday. Come back on Friday. Your op's on Friday. I was like, "Oh, really?" Yeah. Turns up, and it was like a 5 o'clock appointment. And I was in there and out within 58 minutes. I went in, I signed the paperwork. I went into theatres, whatever, they did the business. And then I was back having a brew, a biscuit, and the woman was like, "Are you all right?" I went, "I really need a wee." Oh, she was like, "Oh, we need you to go toilet just so you can go toilet." I went like toilet. And then I was out at 58 minutes. I was in and out having the snip.
I bet they were like, "Quick, we need to get this guy in before you have any more kids."
So yeah, no, I wouldn't. No, I can't have any more kids.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't have any more kids. I think 7's enough, to be honest.
That's plenty. That is plenty.
That's like a 5-a-side football team and 2 subs.
It is.
Almost there for a football team as well.
It is. Well, I think that's pretty much it. The last question that I've got is, can you summarise this whole episode in 2 words? And that'll be the name of your episode. And if you're struggling, you can always message me afterwards if you like.
Emotional damage.
Just check no one else has put that. They haven't.
Emotional damage.
I'm surprised no one else has done. That's a good one. That. I like it.
It's a good one. It's been a roller coaster. There definitely has been a roller coaster of you know, a learning experience in to say the least. It's been a roller coaster of emotions with family getting involved and number of kids. Would I change it for the world? No, I wouldn't. You know, if anything, the only thing that I change would be obviously communicating more deeper on a deeper level. Just obviously, I didn't and probably like yourself, you don't expect that you marry somebody and expect your world to come crashing down and it to come to the end. You know, as the old saying goes, "Till death do us part." And I wanted to be like my grandparents. They both died within marriage, and you know they died till death did them part. And
yeah, I took that seriously, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But cheers for coming.
Thank you very much
really
for having me.
It's been really fun. Oddly, it's probably the most fun one I've had. But no, really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.